It may only be January, but it's never too early to start talking about Halloween Horror Nights speculation. And with an anniversary year on the horizon, this year is sure to be just as big, if not bigger, than HHN 34. And we have our first speculation map of the season thanks to Horror Night Nightmares. They gave us a little Christmas gift. They put out a Christmas version of their HHN spec map. So in today's video, we're going to go house by house, and I'm going to let you know what I think might be coming to HHN 35. Now, before we get started on today's video, if you're new to the channel, if you're an HHN fan, a Universal fan, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on notifications. We are so close to 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do so. All right, so let's jump into this map, and just a couple of ground rules before we get started. I am only going to be talking about the Orlando map. There's also a complimentary Hollywood map, but we're not HHN Hollywood people, so we're going to only be looking at HHN Orlando's map. Now, however, that doesn't mean I didn't look at the Hollywood spec map, and I looked at it because every year somewhere between 3 to 5 houses are shared between Hollywood and Orlando, and this year is going to be most likely no different. And according to the spec map, there are 5 icons that are on both the Orlando map and the Hollywood map. So those tell me that those are going to be the IP houses that both coasts are going to share. Everything else is going to be an original. So let's not waste any more time and start looking at this map. So we're going to start over at Soundstage 22, and we're going to work our way clockwise around the map. And this first one here has like a jack-in-the-box with like a little elf or like a gnome, something along those lines. The elf might not really mean anything. It's a Christmas-themed map, so obviously not everything is going to be a direct correlation. And at first glance, I thought this was going to be the Jack versus Oddfellow house. There's a very high likelihood we're getting a Jack the Clown versus Dr. Oddfellow house. They kind of teased it at the end of the season last year inside of El Artista. There was a couple Easter eggs as you exited the house that kind of alluded to the fact that it would be coming back. Jack the Clown always comes back on anniversary years, and this is an anniversary year. However, the fact that this is also on the Hollywood map is throwing me off just a little bit, because Jack the Clown is pretty much exclusively an Orlando icon. Now, he has been featured on the Terror Tram. I believe that was in 2007, so it's been like almost 20 years since he was out in Hollywood. But I would be surprised if Jack versus Oddfellow is a both coast house. That would just really not make a lot of sense. So I am gonna pivot, and I'm going to take a wild guess here. I might be totally wrong, but I'm going to guess Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for this location. It's a soundstage. It's one of the marquee real estate properties. They usually put one of the bigger houses there. And you might be wondering, what does a Jack-in-the-Box have anything to do with Five Nights at Freddy's? So if you saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the marionette, which is like the main villain or one of the main villains of the movie, comes out of a box, almost like a Jack-in-the-Box. So the fact that this is an IP that's going to be on both coasts, I might be a little bit too soon for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, considering they just did FNAF last year, but it was so insanely successful that it wouldn't surprise me if they ran it back. It was always the house with the longest wait. The merchandise sold really well. They're even still selling it in the parks today. The overlay at Louis was really, really successful. People love Five Nights at Freddy's. So if they decide to run this back, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to go FNAF 2 here, although I do think Jack and Oddfellow is definitely coming to Orlando. It's just going to be in a different spot. Right next door at Soundstage 23A, this one couldn't be more obvious. It's an upside-down clock, and cue the Vecna clock chime, because it's going to be Stranger Things 5. Universal and Stranger Things have a great relationship that has gone back to the beginning of the show. There's been 3 previous HHN houses based on Stranger Things. One of them was like a mashup between seasons 1 and 2. Then they did season 3, and most recently they did season 4. So it would only make sense to wrap up the HHN and Netflix Stranger Things relationship with Stranger Things 5. Now, does that mean it's definitely going to be Stranger Things 5? No. Maybe it's a mashup of the entire series, almost like an ode to the entire series of Stranger Things. I would be down for that. I didn't get the chance to see the early Stranger Things houses, so I would love to kind of revisit some of those scenes. However, it's most likely going to be season 5. Next up is like a pin cushion with some pins in it, And I think this one is also pretty obvious. All signs are pointing towards Hellraiser. Hellraiser is a property that was rumored to be coming to HHN 35 while HHN 34 was taking place. There was heavy rumors about that. And obviously, this is a nod to Pinhead with this icon. I'm not super familiar with the Hellraiser series. I know there's more than one movie. I've only ever seen the original one, but I know there's like multiple Hellraiser movies. So maybe this will be like a Jason Universe type of situation where they mash up all the different movies and kind of bring that into one. Wouldn't surprise me, although I'm not super familiar with Hellraiser really outside of the original one. So I think this is kind of a slam dunk. All signs are really pointing towards that. Anything can change with HHN. You know, rights can get lost. Things can fall through. It happens more often than you think. So it's not a true slam dunk where like there's no chance I could be wrong on that. But all signs are definitely pointing towards Hellraiser. All right, next door is an interesting one. It is a carton of eggnog. Now, again, keep in mind this map is a Christmas themed map. Doesn't necessarily mean the property has to do with eggnog in the slightest bit. I read this not so much as eggnog, but more of a milk carton, that they just used eggnog instead of milk because it's a holiday map. And when I think of a milk carton, I think missing kids. Back in the day, they used to put, you know, missing kids or missing persons on the sides of milk cartons. I don't think that's really a thing anymore, but the first thing that comes to my mind is It. Now, whether that's It or whether it's Welcome to Derry, the latest series that was over on HBO Max, I'm not quite sure which version it'll be, but it's been rumored to come to Halloween Horror Nights for years now. And what better time than now, right? Like, obviously you had the It movies over the last, 10 years or so. Welcome to Derry was extremely popular and extremely well received. Obviously they'd have to work with, I believe, Warner Brothers to get the rights to that, but Universal works with all different types of, properties and companies to get the rights for some of these houses. So I don't think that would be a massive hurdle. I would love to see it. I mean, I'm a big fan of It. There's no chance Alex would go in that house. Like, that's like her biggest fear is clowns, specifically It, or Pennywise, I should say. But I would love to see this as a house. Now, whether they do Welcome to Derry or if they just do, regular old It, fine by me, because this is something I've been wanting to come to the event for a long time. And when I see milk carton, that's the first thing I think of. Now, there's a couple of houses that are on this map that are just like generic Christmas presents. Those most likely are representing the original houses. Original houses could be anything. I mean, they could literally make up stories like what they did with El Artista last year, or they could be sequels to other properties that they've done in the past. I'm not going to spend too much time speculating on the original houses. We might save that for a future video down the line, but obviously there's going to be probably 5 originals as well. Next door at Fast and the Furious, the icon is what looks to me like a big bad wolf wearing a Santa hat. Now, there's 2 things that pop into my mind. One is Scary Tales. If they do a big bad wolf type of house, could be pretty interesting. I mean, Scary Tales was a very well-received house, very well-received original, and they've kind of gone back and done sequels. They've done Slaughter Cinema 2 over the last couple of years. They've kind of pulled from other places, so wouldn't surprise me if that's what it is. If this is an IP house, the one thing that kind of popped into my mind, I do think it's a little bit of a stretch, but that's Black Phone 2. And the tie-in there would be like there were parts of that movie that took place like in a cold, icy environment, and that's where wolves live. Might be a little bit of a stretch. And again, we already have 5 properties that are shared between Orlando and Hollywood. So this is probably an original. So it's probably going to be something, maybe it's Scary Tales, maybe it's something completely different. But if it does happen to be an IP, my guess is Black Phone 2. As we make our way to the other side of the park, heading over by the Sprung tents over at Tent 4, this one is really interesting. So there is a lighter with 2 cigarettes. There's a lot of speculation about the movie Sinners coming to HHN this year. Obviously, it was a top horror movie last year, also a top movie overall. I believe it's nominated for Oscars, and the little icon is like perfect for Sinners. You have 2 cigarettes. The twin brothers from the movie smoke and stack. They smoke a lot on there. Obviously, they can make this a scary house. The movie isn't exactly a horror movie. It's kind of like multiple movies in one. But something that I am kind of curious if they do decide to go this route, and now this is leading towards an IP because this is also on the Hollywood spec map. Something that's interesting to me is they did something similar to this a few years ago with A Darkest Deal, with the whole concept of like selling your soul and that whole thing. So they would kind of be revisiting that in like a different way. Obviously, this is a movie, not an original. So I want to say it would surprise me if they did something similar to Darkest Deal again so soon. But Sinners is really popular. A lot of people love it. And if they do it right, I think this could be a really, really cool house, a really creepy house with all the vampires and some of those characters from the movie. So my guess is Sinners. I don't know what else it could be as far as an IP that has to do with two cigarettes. I think the stars align, the two brothers, they smoke and stack. It just checks out. So next door at 10-3, I have like conflicting opinions on this one. At first glance, the first time I looked at this, I thought this was like almost like a slot machine. Like when you go to a casino and you pull the lever and you have to line up like 777 and you win the jackpot. That's what it looked like to me at first glance. Now, obviously there's no lever or anything along those lines, but the icons in the middle reminded me of that. And at first glance, I was like, well, maybe this is the Jack versus Oddfellow house, and the whole like gambling casino element of it, maybe that represents chance. Who knows? Also, they're out in Vegas now with Horror Unleashed. Maybe there's a loose connection there. But the more I thought about it and the more I looked at this, I don't think this has anything to do with that. I think this is a lock. It looks like a combination lock. If it is a lock, the one thing that popped into my mind would be Resident Evil. Now, they have a new game coming out, I believe. I can't remember if it's this year or if it's next year that they're kind of coming out with another one. I don't know if they're like rebooting the series or if it's just like another game in the franchise. If you're familiar with the games or if you played them before, you know that the locks are a big part of it. You encounter the locks multiple times when you're playing those games. So it could be Resident Evil, but this one kind of stumped me a little bit, if I'm being honest. So let me know down in the comments below what you think this one might be. Do you think it's Resident Evil? Do you think it's something different? This one kind of got me a little bit. And the final house that we're gonna go over on the spec map is in 10-2, and that one's got the good old rock fist right there. So when I first saw this, I immediately went to Heavy Metal Hell 3D. This was one of the B movies that was featured in Slaughter Cinema 2 a couple of years ago. And like I said before, they've kind of been going to the well, tapping into the Slaughter Cinema franchise, tapping into things they've done in the past. We saw that with the Cat Lady of Crooked Lane last year as a scare zone. We saw that with Hatchet and Chains. I think we're gonna see the pattern of a Slaughter Cinema property getting its own house, and this tells me it's gonna be Heavy Metal Hell 3D. Honestly, out of all the B movies that were in Slaughter Cinema 2, I felt like this one had an actual story. I mean, we saw all the vignettes and like the little trailers that they were showing over at the drive-in before you went in the house. There was also like a pretty cohesive story when you entered that section of the house. You went into the bedroom, you saw that it was like split in half, and then you walked into the world of like neon rocker skeletons. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, I would not mind seeing a whole house from this. And I remember saying that out loud to like Alex and our friends and stuff when we went through that house. It was like, this could be its own thing. There's been like rumors and stuff kicking around online about like maybe an Ozzy Osbourne house or like a Ice Nine Kills. I don't think they're going to do an Ice Nine Kills house. I know Spencer and the band were there a lot last year, but I think that was mostly because they were, involved with the Terrifier franchise, and Terrifier had a house. I mean, they literally played a work of art on repeat as you exited that house. It was the only song they played back there, I believe. So I don't think they're going to do an Ice Nine Kills house. Also, I never thought they were going to do a Terrifier house. So who the heck knows? Like, they're getting a little bit more adventurous with these. So it wouldn't shock me. Although I do think if they ever did an Ozzy house, I definitely think that would be on the West Coast, if not coast to coast. I don't think it would be an Orlando only thing. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense to only do it in Orlando, not do it over on the West Coast. So that's why I'm leaning towards Heavy Metal Hell 3D for this one. Now guys, this is only the tip of the iceberg of speculation season. We're in January. We have months and months to talk about this. There's going to be more versions of the spec map that come out. If you guys are familiar with the channel from past HHNs, you know we go over every single spec map. We go over every single update. So that's why I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you're not already subscribed and if you're an HHN junkie like me, make sure you subscribe down below. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think is coming to this year's event as far as the IPs go? Are your thoughts different than mine? Do you agree with some of the ones that I picked out? I want to hear what you guys think is coming to this year's event down in the comments, so feel free to leave one. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a nice big thumbs up. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, we'll see you guys real soon.